I became just self-reliant. I became self-focused. Like everything was put in to me presenting myself to belong and to just to be good enough. And the danger with that, guys, is that you just become so kind of in this inner world, and you don't allow yourself to be helped. I have to perform. And if I'm going to be loved and find a place, I have to perform. And guys, this was exhausting. It's just a lonely place to be in. And you're so afraid of just being weak and being poor and failing that you just live with a high level of anxiety.
Poco a poco vamos a llegar. Somos peregrinos and you know that's who we are. We make our way. Hey, hey.
Hey, I'm Father Mark Mary.
What's up, everybody? I'm Father Innocent.
Father Angelo's here without Father PT.
Great to be with you guys.
Just three of us.
I think we're all kind of in it today. We were
What
maybe
do you really mean by that?
we were kind of hoping to have a marathon recording day, because we're just trying to get. We have a lot going on in summer, so we don't take a break like some people do, which might be healthier. But that just means we have to pre-record a bunch of stuff.
So we were all talk coming into this, and then we backed off.
But at least we were all on the same page, which I appreciated.
But your question was very funny. Like, hey, how you guys feeling about today? It's like,
fine.
I'm tired. Okay, me too. All right. We're in it. We're definitely in it.
More and more people you see on the road who they're just surprised that we record more than one at a time. Yeah. So they're like, oh, wow.
Which is good. Because we were set to do 8 episodes in 5 days, I guess. In the midst of a come and see, in the midst of just coming back from Florida, in the midst of getting the so we're still recording, so the postulants are still here. And so we're going to do 6 instead of 8. But I mean, and we've done a lot. We've done probably 10 in 2 days before.
Marathons.
Remember that Lent one, man?
That was Lent.
We rocked it. Back when we were digging deep.
Now we're just tired.
We're just tired.
Let's just face it, Ange. You weren't even there for Lent.
I know.
You've always been tired.
I wasn't invited.
You're sick and tired.
We'll let you back in for Advent.
Yeah, you like Advent.
You might have to lead Advent. What's that? What's that face mean?
Advent. I love Advent.
Maybe we can do what's the Delp book?
It's a lot. He's an intense dude.
Just like you.
I know. It's amazing, actually.
Were you limping a little bit today?
Yeah, we went on a run yesterday. We went longer than usual, me and Father Innocent. And I don't know what happened. I got up this morning and I could oh my gosh, strange.
He was leading this run, and we usually go half an hour. We don't try to impress anybody, just good exercise. And suddenly it was just longer and longer.
But it was Sunday, we were just kind of chilling.
Yeah.
Which was great.
We're definitely getting older. We had, again, the come and see with the postulants. There was actually a good turnout. There's probably 13 and 14 of us ended up playing ultimate Frisbee. And I don't, it wasn't a bad thing, but I ran into one of the dudes and he just kind of kneed my calf. Ooh. So I don't know, a little contusion or something, but I was feeling it today.
Hey, thanks for taking a step out. You were kind of leading, taking the initiative there. I was shocked. Not necessarily that you don't necessarily take an initiative.
Frisbee's a good one. I couldn't play basketball all the time with a bunch of guys who don't play basketball, but Frisbee's fine. There's good, all ages. And
it's good exercise.
It's good exercise. You get some sun. And
you haven't been a big fan of the weather the last few days.
No, it's been a little bit cool still.
Which is thank God.
Dumb. But it's funny because I had when I was a senior, graduated high school senior, I took a little trip with some buddies to Hawaii, and then I came back to work. I was cleaning the movie theater at those days. And all I would ever talk about was cleaning, was Hawaii. Oh yeah, in Hawaii they had this, and somebody called me out. So I kind of have that with focus training because
we were just there.
I was just there, and
you love it.
I love it, and you know what I mean. My life here is pretty the same all the time. But one of the things I learned there is I was throwing the football, just kind of chucking it, and I hurt myself a little bit.
Your shoulder?
Well, no, one of my legs for my pivot where I was pivoting. It was I'm not supposed to get hurt throwing the football,
But you do.
So it's part of this aging thing. It's not as a young man, you might get hurt like playing tackle football, whatever. Okay. And then there's like an age, I guess, where I'm at, where it's like, okay, you got to stretch if you're going to like throw it as hard as you can. But we're not at the point where it's like getting up from the couch yet is going to sideline me for
sure.
So like we're still, at least we're doing something.
Yeah, we're pretty active guys.
One of the posh ones came up to me last night and asked me, they were thinking about playing like a flag football game before they left for Nova shit, and they wanted me to be all-time quarterback. I was like, okay,
just like old times.
Kind of come out of retirement a little bit.
Where is this?
They want to do it here, like in the park, before they left.
Why did they want you to be all-time quarterback? They don't know. They're sleeping on me. I want to compete.
I want to compete.
Tell them to let me come play.
Bro,
Yeah, go ahead.
You get hurt when you just throw it far.
This was when I was playing 3, whatever. Do you guys know this game? 3 flags up, 3 flags up, where you just throw the ball and like 10 people try and catch it, and like the first person to get 3 catches wins.
Yeah, what's the game like 500 growing up? Where the person throwing it would say a number and the first one to 500, like 100,
it's a
and then you throw it.
I don't know.
Do a group of people, and if you catch it, you get the number.
You didn't probably play that at the rich schools in California.
We didn't play that game. But I did. I was just throwing the footballs for a long time. I was pretty gross and sweaty. I didn't have a change of habit. So there you go.
Here we are.
One of these things that people would ask me with some frequency at focus training is, it wasn't like an interesting fact about you. What was funny is I asked this to you guys before we started, and neither of you could really think of an interesting fact or fun fact, which is funny because, as we all know, you're not fun.
Yeah, that's the thing. We're not fun. Like, I'm not cool and I'm not fun. I get that. I've accepted that. But I did think of something. I mean, did you think of something?
I'm sure by the time it gets to me, I'll think of something.
You say something.
But also the fact that we can't overlook the fact that you're both like triplet friar priests.
Yeah.
Like, as far as like unique things go,
Uniqueness.
yours just happens to be a state in life.
I got something. I was just going to tell fun. I was recently at IPF, as we all know, we like to talk about things we do. And I met a triplet there. Brendan, I think he listened to the podcast. He's awesome. Praying for him and the guys. He's a triplet, 2 boys and a girl. And just to have, we had that in common, but also we called the priesthood. It was amazing. But we were talking about fun stories. And I told the story of when we were babies, my mom and dad all set us in the same crib, and then when they come back in the morning, we would had scooched around, so all of our heads would be touching. And it's because it just thinks like the need we're kind of used to is to like touching. That's why we're kind of affectionate guys, And then when we would grow older, they would put us in separate cribs, and we didn't like that, so we'd jump our cribs together and we'd all like we're like, I guess 1 or 2 when you can kind of climb or whatever. And so then they'd come back in the morning, they'd all find us in one crib all together, which I just think is a fun fact.
Absolutely.
I think it's cool.
Now, if you were to put that in actual fact form, what would you say? I was a triplet who used to...
Yeah, it's just kind of a fun story.
There you go.
It's a fun story.
I like it.
My go-to... I guess this was pretty like baby monitor, or like they don't have video of you guys doing this.
No.
That's fun.
No.
The picture of you two and Father Xavier sharing a sandbox is pretty funny as well. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, I carry that in my brewery.
Do you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cute. Anyway.
That's cute.
It is cute. One of my go-to fun facts was that I used to go bowling by myself.
It says a lot about you. Who you
it's
are.
pretty, you guys would try and put your, your cribs right next to each other. And I would do it's typically social thing all by myself.
All by yourself. All
without shame.
By yourself.
You rock that. I love that.
I did.
Bowling by yourself just because of the intensity.
Because I wanted to get a perfect game. That was like a life goal.
Did you
ever get one?
Nah, I got 256. So and then I had a streak of 10 strikes in a row. 12, I think, is a perfect game. And then a friend of mine came in and kind of laughed at me, and then I got a 9. So I was on my way.
But then
I probably just became a priest or something. I was hanging out with, there was this table, Anna, Tori, and Emily, 3 of the new missionaries who I was hanging out with, and brought this up. They destroyed me. They thought that made me
You went bowling?
No, they just thought that was like the dorkiest thing ever in the world.
To go by yourself, absolutely.
I asked the question, like, what's more dorky to do that or talk about Lord of the Rings in public? And they definitively said going bowling by yourself. which I think is wrong.
You think talking about Lord of the Rings in public is
Like at the seminary cafeteria, talking about Lord of the Rings in public.
the dorkiest
I
thing
think
you
is
could
the
ever do.
dorkiest thing.
How'd you feel about Brother Seamus bringing it up
Just
the other night?
throwing Catan with that would be really put it over the top. It was funny. It's fine. It's fine. You can be a dork. You know what I mean? I used to go bowling by myself.
Catan.
Anyway, I'll just shut up about this. My other one that we'll talk about maybe next episode is that when I pray for people, they get pregnant. That was like, there was a conversation. So this is a similar thing. We'll
That's
a
like a
thing.
thing. Well, that's real gifts given to people. There's like charisms at play when that happens.
It's a thing. We'll talk about it next episode because I have to hurry up. If you want to support the podcast, and we're trying to get our monthly donors, we're trying to get 300 new monthly donors in 3 months, so that we don't have to take advertisements and we don't have to talk about it all the time. So you can go to spiritjuice.org/Poco a Poco. Thank you.
You know what's going to happen? People are going to start sending prayer requests because of your fun fact.
Well, I'm going to explain it because there are some particular things, but we'll talk about it in the next episode. But it's a real thing. It's a real thing. The other fun fact that we're not going to get into too much is that Gwen Stefani follows our Instagram. Gwen,
That is a fun fact.
Gwen, if you listen to the podcast.
Thank you. You're awesome.
So let's talk about this.
What are we talking about?
We're talking actually kind of picking up where we left off a little bit.
Hey, I was
Father
surprised by
Angel's
that.
fired up.
I was
by the
surprised
way.
that we're going back there. Not surprised that I'm not excited to go back there, but that must have really
It's just been
moved
yeah,
you because you preached about it the next day, and then I got these notes today. I'm like, oh wow, Father Mark's really in this. Mark Mary, excuse me.
It's all right.
Give me some love. No, I'm just kidding.
No, you're
Good to
kidding.
meet you.
Because I was thinking about, so what we're talking about is just this whole thing of like what does this look like? How does growing in virtue and excelling in this stuff fit with being poor and being a child, and what are authentic expectations, and why, it's kind of like, why am I so moved by like these people who are kind of struggling, making these like very simple acts of kind of love, like kind of doing the best they can. Just the other day before we were going to Frisbee, our dear friend, one of our neighbors who likes to lead us in prayer, was hanging out. He's like, everybody quiet. And he like tells everybody to quiet down, leads us in an Our Father and a Hail Mary and a big Hallelujah and I love you guys. That whole thing, like that just deeply, deeply moves me. And there's something about that I'm like just like trying to unpack. Or again, the experience of when it was before Mass, and this was the same. It was the same situation. I was with this family for probably 8 minutes, where the mom, who just has like a couple month old baby, was talking about when the baby was still in her womb. She's like 9 months pregnant. Her whatever it was, like 4-year-old daughter, because they had to be outside during Mass, like climbed a tree and couldn't get down, and so she's like pregnant. She can't climb up, but her like baby's up there, and her other kids over
Just a
there
disaster.
outside, and she's like, help. And there was just something about like, this is it. Like there's something about like this, but this is what it's supposed to look like. And again, just trying to understand like what are we talking about? And I think what moves me and what we're gonna look at is just following the Lord in a way, like in a state in which we've talked about already, like where you give up control, where you give up self-protection, and you also give up self-fulfillment. Like when you're in this sort of state, it's raw and it's real and it's totally given and it's Eucharistic, I think, and it's this fatherly, maternally approach to life, and but it also has like an experience of poverty, and it can have an experience of messiness. But I think this is what we're going for, as opposed to just a spirituality or discipleship of a piety where we are very controlled and we are very much like, this is how I want to do it, this is what I'm going to do, where it's just, there is this totally givenness. So that's kind of my first introduction to it.
Love it.
I like it. And I mean, I think we experience this pretty deeply because I think in our own lives, we've fought the right battles for our own healing and formation, and looking at our weakness and not being afraid of that. But also when we walk with young people, whether it's in like pre-vocation stuff, young adults or guys in formation, we have to recognize, guys, that a lot of our hearts are deformed. And I don't want to be afraid to say that, but our culture and kind of the brokenness that is just kind of present in our culture, I think it deforms us. And so now when we have conversions and wanting to like go all in for the Lord, we have to be reformed by him. We have to be refashioned. And there's a spiritual reality to this, but also a human reality, right? So there's always spiritual formation and human formation. But I recognize in my own journey, and as I walk with others on their journey, that we have been taught certain ways of living. We have been formed. The soil that we were formed in could have hurt us and kind of cultivated a sense of, like self-reliance and self-protection and fear and insecurity. Right? When you grow up and breathe these things, that just has an effect on our lives and an effect on the way we live. Right? So I think what we're talking about here is it's just a new way of living and a new way of inviting people to experience their humanity and in a relationship with God. And so I guess when I was praying about this today, like I just wanted to maybe tell a little bit of my own story. This is actually a new part of my witness that I recently told. I was at IPF with the seminarians, and I was asked to give a little meditation on one of the nights of their silent retreat. And this memory came up of a place of kind of brokenness in my own heart. I had actually prayed through this memory in kind of a healing prayer with Sister Miriam. I talk about Sister Miriam a lot. I'm just a big fan of her, and she's helped me a lot on my own journey. And
not everyone gets to do that, by the way.
Our sister recently met Sister Miriam in person.
Oh, she went to that's great.
It was
did
awesome.
she make the connection?
Yeah. Well, Katie went up. She had little Max, and she was like, I am kind of nervous, but I think my brother. It was like,
that's great.
It was great.
Did she totally bless her and just like rock
probably.
her too?
So a couple years ago, this recently came up in a talk, but a couple years ago, I was praying with Sister Miriam, and we were praying just over my heart and my own brokenness and an insecurity of my heart that I had carried around kind of before my healing began. And again, Angelus and I grew up in a great family, but it was very success oriented and very kind of result oriented. And so we worked hard at stuff. We worked hard at being good at school. We worked hard at being good at sports. And that the level of performance and intensity was just big. My mom and dad were very virtuous people, and the family was like the most important, and everything else that just caused us to kind of just excel kind of at everything. Right. But the point, what the struggle is with that is that what happens when you don't succeed, or what happens when there is weakness, or you're not as good as Ange and I just faced it. We weren't as good in sports as our older brother and sister who played D1 sports. So I had this memory come back of when we were like maybe 12, and we went to this kind of a basketball camp. It was a week long in Kansas. Everyone from Kansas coming to this place, and we were going to have a basketball camp. And then at the end of that camp, they chose an all-star team. And so there would be an all-star game, and all the parents would come and watch their kids. And there was a pretty traumatic moment where when they started announcing who would be on the all-star team, like I didn't make it. And Father Angelus did and
I wasn't even an all-star either. That's the funny part about that thing. It's like, how in the world did I,
Well, he made it with all of our friends. And so I have this memory of my name not being called. And now I find myself outside of this world that I really wanted to be in with my friends. And I'm sitting on the bleachers by myself. My mom is like sitting with her own kind of friends. And I feel this separation. And I'm just like this little 11, 12-year-old boy who's sad. And I think I was crying. I think I was just rejected by the whole thing. And I remember at that moment hating it so much, looking out at the court and looking at the bench where every seat was full. And I didn't have a place at all. I didn't belong there. I didn't belong on the bench. I didn't belong on the court. And I remember that significantly impacting me. And I started to believe this subtle lie that I didn't have a place and that I didn't belong, and that I wasn't good enough to have a place on the team. Right. And what happened in my 12-year-old heart there was a reality that I hated that feeling so much of not belonging and not feeling good enough that I began to tell myself that I would never feel that way again. And I would do whatever it takes to not feel that way. and to not be in a position where I was on the outside anymore. And so what happened is I began to live this kind of self-seeking, self-righteous, self-protection, definitely. Like I just had to do it all myself, and I had to prove myself, and I had to do everything to make sure that I was good enough, fast enough, strong enough, good looking enough, talented enough, so that I could have a place on the team. And so this drove my decisions. This drove my desire, because I never wanted to feel like that. And so I became just self-reliant. I became self-focused. Everything was put in to me presenting myself to belong and to just to be good enough. And the danger of that, guys, is that you just become so kind of in this inner world, and you don't allow yourself to be helped. I have to perform. And if I'm going to be loved and find a place, I have to perform. And guys, this was exhausting. It's just a lonely place to be in. And you're so afraid of just being weak and being poor and failing that you just live with a high level of anxiety. And so I took this into middle school. I took this into high school. I even took this into being a friar. Everybody kind of knows parts of those other stories. But this memory came up with Sister Miriam, and we just prayed into it, and she just broke open this place because something happened in my heart here, and the healing that just needed to come from the Lord to break down. I think Father Angelos is going to use the word armor, to break down all this armor I had put up on my heart, and I had convinced myself that life had to be like. The Lord had to come in and start to break it down. And I'd be as we go on, as we talk about the process and what the answer is, I'd be very happy to say, well, like God did during that time. But this is what I had to realize, that I was living like this, and God had to come really heal me and save me from it.
And so, Father Innocent, if I can jump in, is you actually remember like making a decision?
Yes.
Is there a name for that type of thing? Do they?
Well, I think, again, the name that we know now from this experience is like you make like an inner vow.
Yeah, that's what the language.
Yeah, that's what the language is. Bob Schutz talks a lot about this. We actually, as children, when we experience pain or rejection or separation, you make an inner vow with yourself that I will never feel like that again, or I will never be like that. Like especially if you have a struggle with your family, if your dad was like absent, and you start to like well up in anger, and you're like, I'm never going to be like that. And so then that fuels the kind of man you become, because again, I made an inner vow that I want to be like this or not be like that because of fear and anxiety or insecurity.
Mm-hmm.
The inner vow you would make is like, I'm never gonna, or I'm gonna protect myself from that kind of pain. So again, that's when that vow comes up, when you're like, I'm always gonna protect myself from any.
I never want to feel that again.
Yeah,
so I'm gonna vow to do whatever I can
not to experience that.
And so, right, just to kind of help and flesh a little bit like that to the outside, you're going to be working extra hard. You're going to, like football, you're going to be hitting extra hard. You're going to be
more time in the gym, more time.
But also like as even the Lord starts to kind of like direct it more, it might be, I'm going to be, spending this extra time in the chapel even, or I'm going to be answering the door extra quick, or I'm going to be,
and again, it's the striving is that I'm still in control. And even holy things, and this is where my life as a friar, I had to be a super friar, had to be in control. I had to do all these things for the sake of looking the part, mm-hmm. and having a place. And I did. Like, hey, father or brother, you're so good. Like, you'll make final vows, you'll do all these things. You're so right. Gifted, all these things. But it was feeding the place of right. deep insecurity and the right. need to perform and be in control.
And it's just this like, I will, in everything I do, I will be an all-star. Because if you're not an all-star, you get left out, right?
Yeah, mm-hmm. and I won't be on the team.
And that's what I want us like to do. So, and I think that's like when you are in this context where you've kind of given yourself and you've been in a place for a little bit, like some of the motivations, some of the why, and some of this starts to surface, right? Because it looked great. And people would have been like, yeah, Father Innocent, he's such a hard worker. He's such a good friar. He's such this. And what they don't know, have access to, is like, oh, it's like so much of it is self-protection, right?
And because he's a scared little boy inside, I mean, and Sister Miriam's big thing in the healing prayer, she's like, Father, like, you got to attend to that scared little boy who's 12, who's sitting on the bench, who doesn't belong. You have to attend to him. And this is the gift of healing prayer. I was a friar, 35 years old, and I still had this like 12-year-old little boy in me who promised that he'd never feel this way or never be weak again. And he always had to be good and perform. And so Sister's like, yeah, Father, like, you have to, like, we have to let Jesus come to that place, but then you have to go to that place.
Mm-hmm.
It's really beautiful when you can pray with people and there's this clear rupture of that little kid that gets left aside. And sometimes I'll experience with a bunch of guys, like they have the depressed kid in one corner that they resent, and they have the lustful kid in the other corner that they present. And so they have all these, because sin ruptures our heart and disorder ruptures our heart. So, and true healing is communion with yourself, right? And so it's beautiful when you're in it with guys and you recognize that Jesus wants to walk to each part of our, like they're condemned to the sides of our hearts and to the darkness of our hearts. And then we have self-resentment and we have self-hatred because I hate myself for being lustful. I hate myself for not being good enough to be on the team. And so you have all the infection around all that stuff. And then the challenge is that we feel that, and then it's just like, okay, what does healing mean? Well, Jesus needs to have mercy, and you need to have mercy. You need to renounce hating yourself for all the rupture that's happened in my life. But it's beautiful because Sister Miriam taught us to do this. But when we go through it our own selves, but when you pray with other people, it's like, okay, like we're going to let Jesus enter this experience in your heart, and he's going to walk to this person, this little boy that's experienced a life sentence. That's the vow. That little boy has a life sentence to the side of your heart because he feels like he's not good enough. And what does Jesus do? And then if Jesus brings that little boy over to give you an experience of communion, what do you want to say to him now? As this new person, as a person that's a bunch older, and like, what do you want to say to him? Especially as a priest right now, what do you want to say to that little boy? How do you want to bless him? How do you want to remind him of who he is? How do you want to experience the truth? And in that experience of healing and integration, but Jesus then, it's almost like Jesus facilitates reunion in our heart with these parts of our lives. And to be with it in people and to see that happen with the postulants and things like, oh gosh, that little kid was scared and afraid. And now Jesus cleans him up and he brings him back to my heart. And the guy experiences communion again. That's wonderful. There's like nothing better than to have these places in our hearts experience redemption and light and don't have to be, experiencing the life sentence anymore. It's beautiful because then you can tell people, so like when you get tempted again to be insecure, that little boy is going to panic and want to run away back to his place where he's comfortable. And so the gift of new life in the Lord and grace and confidence and the healing that happens is you can hold him in communion and you can tell him he doesn't have to run away anymore. Right? Which is just wonderful.
So before kind of going on to what you've prepared, Father Angelus, to go back to you, Father Innocent, to kind of maybe tie a bow on this is, so like what looks different once you're no longer, right? Like once you're no longer having to be an all-star out of self-protection, what actually changes? Yeah,
it's a great question because following up with what Father Angelus said, like the healing that had to happen in my heart was that not only did Jesus have to come into that memory? Because again, there's a concrete memory, but it's the whole of my life as living this way. Jesus came into my heart, and he met me in these dark places and broken places of insecurity and loneliness. And what happened is, for Jesus, he came in and he unconditionally loved me. That's always the answer to kind of my own story. Is that when I felt like I didn't belong and have a place on the team, Jesus comes and refashions my understanding of love and being accepted and being wanted, right? So what what happened in my memory, he comes and sits down next to me on the bleacher all alone, and then he begins to tell me the truth. He begins to love me back to life. And it took a long time. Jesus and I sat there a long time. He was so patient and attentive with and just so sensitive to my heart. But Jesus had to heal a lot of going on of he had to unconditionally love me there. And that heals. That's what prayer is, right? And then like Father Angelo said, actually what was harder was the fact that like Jesus, there was a point in my own healing prayer where Jesus was like, okay, so now can like your 37-year-old go to this boy? Can you go sit next to him? And I'm like, I don't like that boy. He's ugly. He's weak. He's awkward. And from this point on, he's going to do stuff because he doesn't want to feel pain. He's going to run away from his heart. Like, I don't like him. I don't like thinking about that. And so Jesus slowly helped me again, go sit by this little boy and love him and be patient with him and be tender and listen to him. Sister Miriam's big thing is like, what does he want? Like, what is he crying out for? What does he long for? And let this part of our hearts tell us, like, I just want to be loved. I just want to be seen. Can someone just come sit next to me? Like, my mom and my dad were just so good. But again, I just have this memory of just not being seen. And so anyway, so when all this can happen, what it doesn't necessarily exteriorly, it does like, okay, well, you still felt like people don't notice. But what you experience is, again, this, when Jesus breaks these vows, you experience just a deeper freedom not to play the game. Like I had to fight for the truth that I did have a place around the table. Like I had this experience of this, because the unconditional love of Jesus had healed me. He walked me, like he's the one that kind of walks me into like my life and into my mission and into my vocation, where as a friar now, I'm living from a different place of freedom. Like I recognize that I can just be myself. I can be weak. I can be poor, right? Like I think this is what we're getting at. Like, what changed is my whole world fell apart. And then he loved me back to life. But then there was something different, especially when I was older. There was something different about like, wow, like I'm not afraid of my weakness. I'm not afraid of my poverty. I can, like, I don't, like, I began to stop caring, like whatever other people thought. I just accepted my weakness. Yeah, I'm not that good at sports, and that's okay. Or I'm not, like we joked about, I'm not cool. I'm okay with that. Like, so you just begin to accept your poverty and your weakness, but at the same time, you just realize, wow, like, but who am I? Like, and Jesus gets to define me. And as soon as I just kept receiving that, like, Jesus is telling me who I am. I have great people in my life, like the brothers telling me who I am. And then I can just stop grasping. I can stop looking for everything I need out there and just recognize that it's really the simple movements of just letting yourself be loved in your weakness, rejoicing in who you are, and stop playing the game. So I hope I don't want to be abstract, but what interiorly changed is this place of unconditional love and not being afraid of my poverty and my weakness and just recognizing who I am and living in that.
I was thinking of a young mom who is at the bottom of the tree pregnant. So like interior, actually the kid still's in the tree and she still can't get up and she still, but what is the self-protective, self-reliant mom do? And then what is the one who's being set free in the Lord and trusting that, okay, I'm poor and weak and I need to ask for help and I don't need to put on a show for everyone. Yeah, my kid's in the tree and I'm pregnant and I can't do anything about it, right? It could be really self-defeating and then she could really feel sorry for herself, have self-pity, or she could just be like, kind of laugh at it and be like, all right, Lord, here I am again. I just need you, right? So just the reality of like, okay, now Father Innocent's 37 and we all still have these temptations, but how do I since I'm in an interiorly a different space, what does it mean to live from a place of truth and identity and freedom rather than this little boy in me who's suffered, and was confused and it's just beautiful. Like thinking of those examples, like how does that mom react differently? Well, she kind of laughs it off. She was like, all right, I need help. Can someone help me? And you don't have to get insecure around, oh gosh, I'm a bad mom and everybody thinks I'm a bad mom and my kids, so anyway.
I think of a practical thing that happened when I was like in 5th grade or 6th grade, something like that. And then because of the healing that started happening in my heart in high school, like by having like meeting priests and starting to pray and things like that. Like when I struggled with depression, like I was able to live in freedom. Like I quit basketball. I walked in the living room, like my mom, and told my mom and dad, like, I quit, I'm done. Like, and it was for all the right reasons. And I just couldn't play this game anymore. And my mom and dad were so good, but they were like, what? Like, we don't quit.
How old were you?
Junior year.
Yeah.
High school.
Yeah.
So like I quit, But I think that's a fruit of like something that was happening in my heart that I'm like I'm not going to continue to pretend that I have to like force and strive and try to create a place for myself here. Like I didn't get cut. I just like, I can't do it. So I think that's also like setting those boundaries that like, I'm done. I don't care what the world thinks. I don't care what I obviously care what my parents think, but I just told them I can't do this. I think it was a freedom that was starting to have that I just made practical, concrete decisions of trying to break this vow, if that makes sense.
One of the things I think it's important too, I was getting more of an introductory remark, but just kind of going back to it. Cause like the self-protection, the self-reliance, some of those things, I mean, I didn't consider and work through some of that stuff in my life till I was on a retreat with Monsignor Essef. And he's the kind of guy that just kind of goes to the root, right? And goes to the foundation. And it's just good to hold up. That's really what we're talking about. A lot of these things are like foundational experiences that we have that we're inviting people to consider something deeper. Because I think most people, and we in our own lives, it's like we often just deal with symptoms of things.
Like, yeah, the fruit.
Yeah, we're often just kind of, okay, I'm a little anxious today, so I'm going to do something about that. Or I'm a little afraid today, or I'm always insecure on my friends with my kids, and so I'm just going to kind of deal with that. And so it's interesting to kind of like, what's the fruit in my life? What are the symptoms in my life that I'm dealing with? But we just put a lot of time and effort into that. And then therefore it's just like, why aren't things getting better? Or why am I always anxious? And you wonder if there's deeper things. You're like, oh gosh, maybe I need to get more help emotionally with this, or maybe, and sometimes people definitely do. But I just think that's fascinating because I think what worked out, I think it was a couple episodes now, and when we all kind of jumped onto this, and all of a sudden you're just like, whoa, this is really real. And when we go out and talk to people, and when you talk to the postulants and focus training and net training and Damascus and all these kinds of things, and you're like, holy cow, we're like the missionaries who give their whole lives for the church and professional religious people, completely temptations to be self-reliant, completely temptations to be insecure around other people, so to have to prove yourself and achieve and do all these things, completely temptations to be workaholics and perfectionists. You're like, whoa. But we don't, sometimes those symptoms just like, oh yeah, I'm just working hard for the Lord. And so we have ways to justify the reality of like why I'm busy. One of the vocation visitors the other day asks, why don't you work out as much? Because I was talking about working out. They're like, why don't you work out more? I mean, you said you work out maybe twice a week and you want to do more. Well, why don't you? And it was just funny. My answer was like, because I'm a workaholic. I mean, if you want the honest answer, it's because I work too much, and everybody knows it. I know it. And I have good brothers and friends who rescue me at 3:00 every day and say, and I argue with them. I was like, no, I have too much stuff going on. And
that's
then
precisely the problem.
Father Gabriel Manuel was like, exactly. We're going to go work out now. And I need that. Right. But it's this temptation to always, if we live on the surface and we live in the symptoms and we live in the surface level realities of our lives, we never get to this stuff. And if we get to this stuff, and it's a little bit scary, and you have to dig deep, and you might have to go through some particular things, but this is like actually what could heal us. This is actually what, as the Catechism says, it reorients our whole lives back to the Lord. Right. And I just think it's exciting because it's like, oh gosh, this actually means something, because if we can focus on this stuff, and in my own life, if I can continue to look at my insecurity, if I can continue to look at the deeper parts of my life that I protect myself, or the deeper parts of my life where I rely on myself, or I strive too hard, or I strive to perform or achieve, or whatever it might be, then I can actually let the Lord into those deeper things, and things can be rooted and refounded. We're constantly talking about rebuilding my temple of my heart, rebuilding and reconsecrating and doing some of these things. Then those symptoms like take care of themselves. And then the coping mechanisms that we use because of these deeper parts of us that suffer, oh my gosh, that doesn't have a hold on me as much anymore. We start to see those things, but if we don't get to the depth of it, I just would worry that we have a lot of good, faithful Catholic people who never taste true freedom in the Lord, right? The mom who laughs it off and tries to ask for help to get someone down, that's a real freedom. She's not insecure. And Father Innocent, leaving in a deeper freedom in your life right now because of what you've been through and the healing you experienced, that's what we're going for, right? And we're trying to teach the postulants that, and we're trying to teach people along the way that. I just think it's beautiful. I think this is the deeper questions that people really long for. And I think the encouragement is to take the symptoms, but let's ask the Lord what's beneath all that. So through good prayer and maybe through good support and spiritual direction for continued healing, we can actually start to release people from these real rooted vows and judgments and real rooted realities of people's lives that really keep them from being free.
Mm-hmm. I'm thinking of, I think I have a couple, but what I'll talk about now is I think one of my, and I'm not the only one in this, like one of my great practices of self-protection is all around the rules. Because if I know the rules, well, it's like, so I can't get in trouble for breaking the rules. Like, so I'm going to keep all the rules. Right. And that's like a self-protection. So I can't get in trouble. You can't, and there's like this justice thing. Like if I'm obeying all the rules, you can't, like I can't get in trouble, can't get called out, singled out, whatever it is. But the first step of obeying all the rules is learning all the rules. So it's really funny, but I have this like somewhat incredible like memory for when someone says something, it's like, here's what we're going to do. Like, here's the new rule. And it just sticks. And why have I like developed such like a skill for this and such a memory for this and like an ear for it is 36 years or 37 years. However, I didn't start when I was 0, but decades of self-protection and of developing this gift. Like if I was like a hunter gatherer 800 years ago and I could, or maybe I guess it's more than 800 years ago. I could read all the little signs, like here's where the buffalo went or the boar went, because it was like, this is survival for me, right? Like learning the rules, remembering the rules and obeying the rules, it's survival and it was self-protection. And so it's funny. One of the manifestations of it though, is a real sensitivity towards people breaking the rules, because it's like, my defense is based off of us all being on agreement, like that here are the rules. And if you break the rules, like I'm vulnerable. And so I'm very sensitive to it. And so it's very funny, even with things, I think like things like talking during the meditation hour, the quiet hour. Part of why I think that's like a thing for me isn't because I care that you're making noise or it's like, but it's like, hey, there's rules here.
And we all committed.
And if we start breaking the rules, then like I'm vulnerable, right?
I like that.
Or there is this really funny thing that it might just be getting older, but like particularly like with pickup basketball, there's like these like unspoken rules and these etiquette things. And it was like if you like we take like when we're taking the ball back, we take it back with like both feet before going, or like you don't just, because there's no like tracking of fouls, like just to do like a dirty foul to stop somebody from scoring. Like I have this like real sensitivity like for like the rules, and if you break the rules, it affects me.
It's insightful.
But I think what it's all about is just going to again, like this is my defense and this is how I protect myself. And if we're all obeying the rules and I know all the rules, I can't get in trouble.
Yeah, we're not going to fail.
Right.
It just in the sense it's like protects you. If we do this and then we're going to be okay. Yeah. Right. And again, it's not like rules aren't important, but this is like a great example because we have to follow rules.
Right.
But again, what's behind it?
Yeah.
Is this anxiety of like, okay, we got to keep this for this. You're like, whoa. So it's a great example.
And so it is fun because I went to like a Catholic high school and nobody gets 0 detentions. Like they wrote this letter in the mail, like you got 0 detentions. You normally get an award, but we're just not doing it this time. Cause it's like dress code, everything. I was late to 2 classes my entire 4 years. Once because I thought it was lunch and then freshman year. And then once because somebody was like in the carpool was late. So, but all of this, all the being there early, the rules, the uniform, it's all self-protection. Right. And so I've talked about it before, but that's why sometimes like, there's actually an expression of the freedom or of the healing or of the growth is when I make a comment to somebody during the office of readings or something like, or not the office of readings, but it's like, there's certain things where it's like, okay, it's like, okay, like, yeah, there is just a different freedom. And so the rule, like, it's not that we don't obey the rules now, but it's just what's at stake with doing everything right isn't survival. Yeah. It is, and so I think that's like one expression of it, which is also something like if, we have to be careful because if there are people who are like rules,
like what's going on there?
Yeah.
I'll be happy to break rules with you.
Beer bread on a Friday in Lent. Breaking the rules.
And one of the podcasts again. Thank you very much.
One of the podcasts made it. I'm like, here you go, Father Mark Berry. Here's some.
He tried to simplify it though.
One thing that's interesting is that once you start to understand and live from these deeper places, you recognize that there's a simplicity to how you understand your woundedness. And so when I've in the past, talking about 13 years, when I particularly struggled with fraternal relationships, it's always centered around like not being seen and not being like heard, and like really feeling that like this person just doesn't see me, or just, yeah, or kind of like conditionally, like I'm not good enough ever. And so it's funny, right? In my own healing, like it simplifies, like, why do I struggle with this person? Like, and it's like, yeah, because I feel like he doesn't see me.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he just kind of runs over me, or he's conditionally loving me, and I'm like, we're just missing each other. So it's interesting. It's like once you identify the place of this like kind of brokenness and the vows that you make and how you try to live, you recognize that a lot of things start to make sense. Like, why do I struggle with this person? I think it's because he's hitting on that place in my heart.
And if I could just say that one thing on that before is like, again, like what are the symptoms? What is this? Is I remember being in Honduras. It was Holy Week. We had a family, some of the friars there, and the friars were together. And because we do everything for Holy Week together, it's kind of like, it's just a big thing. And we were taking the like sort of the lay people, the adults, to like grocery store. They're going to pick something up for us. We were there. I had a sense of like what time we were going to be back. I wasn't senior. I wasn't in charge. And so the brother was like, oh yeah, let's just have lunch. We'll take our time. And so for me, this just sets off every sort of trigger possible, because it's like,
I got to be back.
We're going to be late. We're going to be late and we're going to get in trouble, and he's not going to like this. And I don't have, I'm not the superior senior in this. I don't have control of it. And so this is part of like how the healing happened, but also like where it's like, oh, my anger towards this person isn't anything towards this person. It's because I all of a sudden am vulnerable and all this sort of stuff. And so if I grow in freedom and I grow in healing, just how I'm going to handle that, how I'm going to respond to the brother, how I'm going to, like, all of that is different when that healing has happened. But also it's healthy and it's good for me to be in this place of where I've kind of given up control of my life, so that kind of thing happens and gets brought to the surface, totally. And then you can work through it.
Yeah, it's great.
How are we doing on time? We still got
we got about 10 minutes in this episode.
Okay,
do you think that's enough time? Or
I had more thought. We don't need to disconnect.
I think we'll do another
more
episode just so you know.
I guess one of the things I think is interesting, right? Like at the end of the day, we want to receive, we desire to receive love. We want to experience being seen and known. And at some point we don't. So there's some sort of rupture in it, and we protect ourselves. So it's just interesting that like we're our own worst enemies, because all we want to do is be loved and seen. But we made a vow that I'm going to protect myself. And so it's like we walk around with this fortress around our hearts, and then we walk around upset with anybody else for not loving or seeing us. And so there's just this weird reality and that's why I think this self-protection thing is so important, and that we all want Jesus to come in. We need to repent and renounce and experience healing there, because we get upset with other people and we start to resent other people. It's like, why aren't you seeing me? Why aren't you loving me? Could someone just take a moment to focus on me for a second, because that's what I really desire. And so many people want to grow, and so many people want to be like, oh yeah, Father, you're totally right. I want to grow in virtue. I want to grow in maturity. I want to grow in all these things. But I can't, because there's a fortress around my heart. One of the postulants gave me some notes about some of this stuff, which is totally providential. I think one of his friends sent some notes on what they're calling the armored self, and what we can get into it. But one of the notes here, which I think is beautiful, I think it probably is a podcast listener, so that's one I would reference it to. This is not us. But those who protect themselves, this is a note here, those who protect themselves have little self-awareness, right? And so, which is super fascinating, the reality that when we turn in on ourselves and we become self-reliant and self-protective, we lose sense of what's actually going on in our hearts. And so again, emotional growth and emotional maturity, when we teach this to guys in formation, that foundation is self-awareness. Like, what's happening in my heart? What emotions am I experiencing? How am I assessing each particular relationship and each particular situation? And what does that mean for my heart and life? And when you're healthy and there's a sense of maturity, you're just aware. Oh gosh, there's something happening in me. I wonder what that has to do with this person or with this reality. And the self-protective, I just think is interesting. They and the armored self, they stop asking the questions about what's happening in them, because they're not too concerned about what's going on out there. They're just protecting themselves. And so there's real lack of self-awareness, which leads to this, kind of being immature, but just the reality of I want so much from others, but I'm not allowing that to happen. Right? Because I'm just not aware of what's happening in me. And I don't really know my heart because I've shut it off from everybody else. But now because that's the case, I'm upset with everybody else because they're not loving me or they're not seeing me. And so again, I found it just really fascinating. We're our own worst enemy sometimes because I want to be healed. I want to grow. I want to be loved. I want to pursue my vocation. I want to date. I want someone to see me and love me and go through all that. But I don't allow him to, right? And when we always joke too, for being a self-protected guy, I'm doing quite well, right? So the Lord still works in mysterious ways, and there's still a lot of grace in my life. But what happens when we can, again, allow the Lord to take us to the deeper roots? And then it's like, oh gosh, everything I've always wanted, I've been really just protecting myself from. And then what happens when those walls comes down? Then we feel our hearts again. Oh gosh. Those are those emotions. Oh gosh, this is what I'm actually experiencing. Oh gosh, this is how I actually feel about someone or feel about myself. And the Lord then can allow us in a very, kind of like a mature and real way to address our hearts. So I just find that dichotomy interesting, that I really want this and I've talked about this and I know my woundedness and this is what's really going to solve it. But I'm like strangling any sort of emotions in my heart.
Because you're afraid.
Because I'm afraid and I don't want to get hurt. And that's just super important to recognize, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think Father Mark Mary addressed this, but also Father Andrews are kind of talking about it. I think there's this, again, there's a brokenness, there's a woundedness from particular experiences. So I have to follow the rules, or I have to be good at something. There was another, so those things happen. And so then we got to take control. Right. So again, control, Father Andrews, if you want to say a little bit more about this in a minute, but.
Well, is it okay if we'll bring up control and go deep dive on it next episode?
Because that's a big one. That's a big one. That's a big one.
If I just want to introduce it, because I was talking with a young man who's a seminarian, and there's just a super fascinating thing, which I think happens a lot, but in vocation discernment. So that's why I think our listeners will appreciate this. But so this young man was dating someone. And he was in college and he fell in love and they were dating and it was perfect, but he got hurt. And so he became he just was so wounded because it was just hard. And he became so afraid and he hurt so much that he's like, okay, I don't want this. And I'm going to turn my heart off to women and vocation. I never want to feel this again. So I'm going to go discern religious life. Right. So what happened is that you like totally shut this part off your heart and you became very afraid of it. And so like, okay, she hurt me. I don't want this ever to happen again. And so I'm not called to marriage. I'm not doing this. So now you're in seminary. And now there might have been a real sense of God's grace and attraction to seminary. And so I'm not saying he was running away totally, but years have passed. I feel called to a priesthood. He's in seminary now and he's faithful and he's observant and people love him. And you could see a real call, but as the Lord was, as he was going on this journey of healing, he realized that when they asked about his, when his spiritual director was like, tell me about past relationships, tell me what happened and the healing that happened. And he realized that as soon as he opened that up, he was very, very afraid. And he just wanted to control it. He wanted to put it back in a box. And the point was that he was in control because he did not want to feel any of that. And as long as he stayed in control of his life as a seminarian and priest and thinking about being a priest, it was fine. But brothers, like this, as we know, this is so dangerous because he's not experiencing the fullness of his heart. Things are locked in this experience and he's afraid and now he's in control. He looks good. He has the joke is he has the comb over and the cassock and everything's fine and he's in control. But when the healing happens, you're like, why am I living like this? Like, why is everything so nice and neat? And if I just don't go back there, guys, discernment can't happen like this. Mm-hmm. Like you're fearful and you just have to be in control. And this is the inner vow you made. I don't want to feel like this. I don't want to. And so you you make life like you respond like this. And I've gone this way, and I'm in control, and I don't have to feel anything until God wants to break in and heal your heart. So I think that's also like a similar example that could happen, discernment, where we get hurt. I don't want to feel like that. And so then I discern religious life, or I've been hurt, in other ways. And so you go the opposite way or whatever. I think there's a lot there.
And then human gifts push you a long way. When you're good at studying, when you're a likable guy, you're more mature than others. And so just like, oh guys, this guy's doing really well. And to address that doesn't mean his whole vocation is upended, but he certainly lacks freedom, right? And so we can even just hide all of that. And let me just say this, those kinds of self-protection, self-reliance, those kinds of things just put a cloud over our life and our freedom and our experience of really being able to hear fully the Lord's voice in a free way, And so once we start to work on some of those things and hear from some of those things, that cloud is lifted and I can be myself in the Lord. And it's like, oh gosh, I'm discerning in a completely different way, without the kind of the cloud of that struggle.
Great. Thanks, guys. I think so. Next week, what we'll come back to or pick up on this is okay, what do we do with this? Like what's like some of the remedy? How do we kind of work through it? I think also we'll talk about sort of the weeds in the wheat kind of parable of like, okay, I recognize this in myself, but it's still here. Like, what do I do about it? Maybe a little bit of can't serve two masters, something like that. Control. You were, Father Innocent, you were talking to me about that type of therapy, like where a therapist comes in and then people just like talk about it, some stuff together in a group. What's that called?
A processing group.
Yeah, welcome to the Poco processing group.
We're going to have one person call in and we're just going to be able to process it together.
That's kind of what this was, yeah. A little processing group. But I do think it's important to model it and to invite people into what it looks like. And this is, some people, one of the comments we get is like, yeah, I just really appreciate your guys' vulnerability. And I guess I forget that we talk like this because we talk like this. I think this is how we live. So hopefully it can be a source of healing and freedom for other people as well. And if you can support the podcast, support our self-help, our paid, our group processing groups.
Angelos, why do you hate yourself?
Let me tell you about it.
Go to spiritjuice.org/Poco. We're going to need this monthly. So if you want to make a monthly donation, that'll make sure we work through it. One of you guys want to, Father Innocent, can you close with a prayer?
In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. Father in heaven, we just thank you for your goodness and the way that you love us at every moment of the day. We just thank you for no matter what we've experienced in our life, that you've always seen us and you've always come close to us to remind us who we are. And Father, we just need you to do that every day. So I just ask that you would bless our listeners with that gift. I bless all of you in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, guys.
Peace.
Poco a poco vamos a llegar. Somos peregrinos and you know that's who we are. We make our way. Hey, hey. Little by little we learn a little more each day that God is love, that life is short, that all will be well.